Everybody's talking about the minutes these guys are playing. Jayson Tatum says he's agreed to take games off and then backed out of it. So how much of a concern is this really? Plus, how this all impacts the balance of the Celtics offense, plus some notes about Robert Williams and Deuce. It's all right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Be ever ready. Recognize the city of champs. Boston, baby, we do what you can't. Locked on number 18, Tatum and Brown, J-team, step back. We gon' wet that and slay teams. Of course, the Celtics, who else could it be? Screaming like KG with the Larry O.B. Karalis above average, assessing the team status. Best daily pod, no cap, salary matching. Clutch like Bird the DJ, keep John on replay. Prime time, dapping up the truth on the sideline. Raining J's, how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners. B.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day, and I'm here for you every day with a free, fresh podcast that drops directly to your device if you are subscribed, so make sure you are subscribed. Even subscribe on YouTube. You can watch the show. Would love to have you there as well. I do appreciate those of you making this your first listen every day. That should be all of you making this your first listen every day. I'm John Karalis, former professional basketball player. Now I cover the Celtics for Boston Sports Journal. I've written a book called Boston Celtics All-Time All-Stars. Celtics taking a break, getting back home, getting ready to play the Dallas Mavericks. There are a couple of topics that are permeating the atmosphere, permeating the Celtics sphere when it comes to the loss and what we're seeing. I'll bring Tom Westerholm, Tom_NBA on to discuss some of those. Tom, first of all, how you feeling? How you doing?
Man, I'm tired. I've been putting in too many minutes recently. You know what I mean? Like my playing time's been too much, and I got to scale it back.
I can tell because every time we talk, there are more speakers behind you, and I know that you're putting in more minutes.
That speaker was already in the room. To be clear, the room has been rearranged. But yes, that is a bass cab from my touring days as a hardcore musician, and it is loud. And
one of these days, we're going to get you to shred on the podcast. In the meantime, we'd like Joe Mazzulla to shred a few minutes off of these guys' playing time, which you were going for the playing time thing, and I was trying to
lob it up for you. I lobbed it up for you. You caught it, landed, and then laid it in.
Yes, it was supposed to be an alley-oop. I caught it. I dribbled. I did just enough to take the assist away from you and make this an ISO bucket.
Yeah, right. You missed the layup. You grabbed the rebound to give yourself the rebound.
That's
and
right.
Then laid it in.
Get the offensive. Yeah. And now that is how you pad your stats.
That's how a big man gets back at guards for stealing shots from them.
That's right. That's exactly how it is. All right, everybody who's talking about the Celtics is talking about the minutes. And that comes after, the loss where Jaylen Brown played 38 minutes. Jayson Tatum played just on about 36. Al Horford played just about 35. That's the big one. But you've had multiple 40-minute games. You had Tatum playing in a 40-minute game in a back-to-back. You've already had now Al Horford 40-minute game. The minutes distribution, the workload on these guys is significant. And the reason why it's a topic is, I think, in part for two reasons, Tom, right? One, the finals happened and we saw them run out of gas. Yeah. Two, it was a stated goal from management that we need to kind of ease these guys back and we need to take some of the workload off. They brought in depth for this team. So it's not that we're just kind of making things up and saying, oh, this is a lot of minutes. That's a high number. Let's talk about the high number. I wouldn't think about it quite as much if it wasn't something that we've seen is a priority for this team. But all of a sudden, after the Ime Udoka stuff and Joe Mazzulla's in, that feels like it became less of a priority under Mazzulla, at least for now. So the question for you, Tom, is, do you think that this is part of the Joe throwing caution to the wind? We're just trying to win games. Or do you think he's got a plan and he's saying, don't worry about the early season minutes because I know we've got Rob coming back and that's gonna reshape things and maybe there's a longer term plan where we're reacting now, and then in a month we're going to say, "Oh, I can't believe we had to do that podcast."
Look, I mean, I think it's impossible to say at this stage. I think if you're looking for reasons to be concerned from that standpoint, like certainly Rob Williams coming back is going to affect a lot of things, right? It's not going to just affect Al Horford. It's also going to affect, the ways the Celtics are structured. They're going to be able to do more double big lineups, which will push more guard time to the bench, maybe more wing time to the bench. Like it will buy other people minutes besides just, the bigs, because the Celtics are so fluid and because they can throw so many different kinds of looks out there. So it will make a big difference. I do wonder, though, I mean, you kind of look at the Celtics, like the way they were structured yesterday from a minutes perspective. I mean, Derek White played 17 minutes. Like, Derek White probably could have played a little bit more. He's been playing fantastic. Like, why are you not bumping his minutes up and bringing somebody else's down? Malcolm Brogdon, I know he's, recovering and all that stuff. He was playing great. He played 25. It just feels like there could have been a little bit more, like you think about like 2K, right? Where it's just like all about the sliders. It's like you
Yeah,
could have
yeah,
bumped those sliders up a little bit and bumped some of the other sliders down just a minute or two. And I don't know, maybe that would have made people feel a little bit more comfortable with it. But then I think the other thing too is like, we can talk about minutes and we can talk about the way these things are structured, but I do think that sometimes players and coaches alike, like I think often players and coaches are much more aligned on this than the media and maybe fans are. Like in the middle of a game, those guys are just trying to win really bad. Like
yeah.
they're so competitive. Every coach is so competitive. Every player is so competitive. And when there's a chance to win a game, they want to try to win a game, even if, you're down by 12 with like 7 minutes left. Maybe it would make sense to put some bench guys in there and just be like, hey, maybe the bench guys get us back into it. Maybe they don't. And we just kind of ride out the game, and I think that's harder for players and coaches to do than maybe somebody who's like 1 degree removed from the game, from actually competing in the game.
And I think, you have Joe Mazzulla, who's trying to obviously win the game. He still has the interim tag, which I think,
Yeah.
I think that there's some level of that's maybe some people have said, that's a concern. I think some level of that is, legal issues, because if you remove the interim tag, that means that you can't have 2 head coaches. And technically right now, Ime Udoka is still the head coach of the Celtics. Legally, I think they can't do that. But as long as they deal with their legal issues so they can keep Ime on a suspension rather than have to pay him all that money, as long as you're still the interim, it's still, you're still like, you can't get 100% comfortable. They can say, yeah, no, it's your job. It's your job. It's fine. But it's not your job until it's your job.
Right.
And so you got to win these games. You got to go out there and win these games. At the same time, I'm not concerned necessarily, except when I read that Jayson Tatum interview with Adam Himmelsbach in the Globe. The one thing that stood out, and I was like, okay, now I kind of have a tiny problem with this. He has said the team has told him, we want you to take a day off. And I don't have the quote directly in front of me, but basically what he said is, we have conversations. They tell me, we want you to take this day off. And I say, okay. And then the day comes and I say, nah, I'm playing. And they go, okay, well, you got to take some time off at some point. I'm like, all right. Well, Jayson Tatum is right now 2nd in the league in total minutes played, behind Kyle Lowry, which, why is Kyle Lowry up there? But that's an aside. That's dumb. But anyway, Jayson is at 633 minutes. And after that deep run, I know he's young. I know his legs can take it. But the cumulative effect, if the team is saying you need to sit, and he's saying, yeah, cool, I'll sit. And then all of a sudden you come around and he's like, no, you know what? I'm not going to sit. At what point does the team say, okay, Jayson, we're not giving you the option. Yeah. We're not going to give you the option. We need you to sit. This is the game you are going to sit. And you can show up and put your uniform on, but you're going to be inactive. We're listing you as inactive. So you got no choice. Put your uniform on, but go sit in the luxury box because you can't be on the bench. I'll let you respond to that in just a second. First, today's show is brought to you by Turo. Turo is the world's largest car sharing marketplace. With Turo, which is Turo, you can book any car you want wherever you want it from a community of local hosts. Browse a huge selection of vehicles for just about any occasion or budget across the US, UK, Canada, and soon coming to Australia. Book a spacious SUV or minivan if you'd like for a family road trip. Get a classic or luxury car for a special event. That seems nice for a birthday or a holiday. Find affordable economy cars if you want to just get from point A to point B and you're on a budget. Test drive the new electric vehicle that you've had your eye on to see how it fits in your everyday life. Many Turo hosts can even deliver the car right to you. Every trip is backed by liability insurance. Terms and conditions apply and exclusions. Forget boring rental cars. Find your drive on Turo, that's Turo.com. Thank you for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Let's make Locked On Sports your second listen every day. All the big games from across the sports world, all the big storylines. You want to walk into the water cooler and sound smart? Listen to this podcast. You listen to this one first, then you listen to Locked On Sports Today. You get everything you need in a very short amount of time, and you'll know everything. So Locked On Sports Today, wherever you found this podcast, also on YouTube. Tom, I blathered on about Jayson Tatum and taking the reins and saying, Jayson, sit down for a game. It's not your choice anymore. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I had a couple thoughts on that. The first one, you're right, like that they need to do that and they need to feel comfortable doing that, because I think one thing that seems to have happened appropriately, right, is that the Celtics have kind of taken the turn to where Jayson Tatum is the franchise superstar, right? Like Jayson Tatum gets what he wants. Jayson Tatum gets the media appearances that he wants. Jayson Tatum gets, everything is now built around Jayson Tatum, and that is the correct move. Like, to be abundantly clear, this is Jayson Tatum's team. Now, the thing about sitting him is this is a little different. This is something where you have to kind of look out for him and his future. And it's something that down the line, like as much, you're keeping Tatum happy, all this stuff, 100%. But you know what? Like if part of keeping him happy is sitting him down sometimes and making him a little bit mad, I think in the long term that will 100% pay off, because he will see that like you had his best interests at heart. You were looking after him, his career, his longevity, his body. You were trying to help. Like, I think that can only be a good thing. So I agree with you entirely on that. Other thing from that Himmelsbach Globe article that stood out to me was like, one of the reasons Tatum doesn't really want Deuce playing basketball at this stage is because of all the cameras and the people who would be recording him. And I was like, yeah, Tatum, I agree completely. And I think people have to chill out a little bit with the Deuce thing. Like, let Deuce be, man. He's like, he is a cute kid. He's Tatum's kid, but like, can we calm down? Just like, let's be a little bit reasonable to this poor kid. Oh my gosh. Anyway,
I know. And this is really, it's a wild kind of line when it comes to Deuce, because he's there at the games,
of course,
and Tatum, and it's Tatum is bringing him onto the floor.
Of course,
Tatum is holding him during interviews, and he's it's. I can see both sides of this, because on one hand he's like, yeah, well, I'm playing a game and my kid is with me, so yeah, I want my kid to play with Marcus Smart and mess around with Marcus Smart, and I'm on the floor, and the Wizards are coming to town. Well, Uncle Brad is coming in, and what are we going to do? Everybody's not going to walk over to him on the sidelines. I'm going to bring Deuce to Uncle Brad and all these other guys. So yeah, I get all that, but also the cameras are around, and it's cute, and people say like, like it's you are willingly bringing him into a public setting, and hey, Tatum has also brought Deuce to the podium willingly, a few times. So that is part of it. But I agree with what you're saying. I agree with what Tatum is saying. But the balance, like it's yes, let the kid be, but at the same time, he's growing up around a superstar, and there's a possibility that this kid could be a superstar himself someday.
There is, yeah.
Although
he's got the height genes for it.
Sure, the children of superstars struggle to actually live up to that hype. They've always have. I hope it's different for Deuce, but anyway, I get your point.
Yeah, I guess my point is more just like the camera stuff. Absolutely. Like, I mean, if he's around, he's on the court, all that stuff, that makes sense. But maybe let the like if I guess this is a preemptive thing. If Deuce ends up playing youth basketball with your kid
Yeah, yeah,
somewhere
yeah,
in
yeah.
just let him be a little kid when
Let
he's
him be.
playing
Yeah, 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 yeah,
basketball.
yeah. Absolutely,
That's my plea
absolutely.
for the other people out there. All right. But yeah, no, in general, before I derail things too badly, I do think that like Tatum is a tough guy, right? Like about minutes. He really is. I mean, he sprained his ankle the other day. We all saw it. Like,
Yeah.
we all saw his ankle twist underneath him, and he gets up and he walks it off and he keeps playing because like the dude loves to hoop and he loves to be out there. He wants to be out there. And that, I mean, look, any basketball player, any basketball fan, any basketball coach respects that a lot because I mean, we all love the game, right? We all would love to be out there. And Tatum takes full advantage of it. But at some point it does have to become a preservation thing. Like you can't you like Kemba Walker prided himself on playing 82 games a season, and like Kemba's different, right? Kemba's a tiny guy who relied on his athleticism and his side to side, and that stuff that goes away at a certain age. But like you pride yourself on 82 games, like you're just not going to have as long a career down the line. So I do think it's very important that the Celtics kind of help Tatum take care of his career and make it as long as possible.
The other concern, and we're focusing on Tatum because Tatum had the quote and all of that, and he's leading or he's second in the NBA in minutes. Al Horford, I think there has to be something with Horford. Now that's where the other question comes in of, do the Celtics have a plan? They say, okay, look, we know if Al Horford's going to be fresh at any point, it's going to be now. So he's not playing back-to-backs. We can push him a little bit more in minutes now, knowing that he's going to get his days off. We're not pushing him in practice. He gets a day of rest. He gets a day of recovery. He takes care of his body really well. Rob will come back and we'll be able to limit Al a little bit more. And that I can accept. I can accept it if that's the plan. But again, a little bit of a concern because Al is a major contributor to this team. You saw when he didn't hit a damn shot against Chicago, how everything fell apart. But
Yep.
the way he's been shooting, where he was up close to 50%, that's a huge reason why they had 9 wins in a row.
Yep.
How many of those wins were like he had four for 4 against the Pelicans, right? Yep. Or he's out there, he's hitting huge shots that have stopped runs, that have extended Celtics runs, that have given the Celtics momentum. So they need him to be that guy. Knowing that he's not going to shoot 48% the whole season, but that's where I think I might have a bigger concern. Even though Tatum is a huge concern because he's your star, your true superstar player, and Jaylen, people really get in on me about the disrespect for Jaylen Brown. I said that I don't think Jaylen Brown is an MVP candidate, but I think he's an All NBA player, and that was deemed as disrespectful. Yep. So yeah, I think that Jaylen Brown is one of the 15 best players in the league and not one of the 5 best players in the league. So I'm disrespecting him.
I mean, it's just if there's going to be an MVP candidate from the Celtics, I feel like we all know who it is. So I don't understand what.
Do we, Tom? Do we?
Apparently we don't. Apparently we don't. Do not sick the masses on me here.
But Jaylen is in that mix as well. Jaylen is he hasn't played quite as many minutes as Jayson, but the Al Horford minutes are the major concern, I think, for me, just because his age and the situation. Good.
Well, I think his age, his situation, and I mean, we've touched on this before, but again, there was no gap year before this year. So I really think that's one of the reasons he was so fresh for so long last year. I mean, I think if I'm the Celtics, I'm looking for as many days off for him as possible at the expense of my record, because Al Horford in the playoffs is so valuable, fresh Al Horford. And it's not the threes. Absolutely. The threes are great. The threes are important, all this stuff. But like last season, I mean, huge part of the reason that the Celtics moved as far as they did was because they had Al Horford and Grant Williams to throw at Kevin Durant, and then they had Al Horford and Grant Williams to throw at Giannis Antetokounmpo. Because without those two guys, I mean, they probably would have beat the Nets either way. The Nets were
Sure.
not, but the Bucks. There's no way they beat the Bucks without both of those guys being as good as they were. And like, and you know, this year the Bucks are probably going to have Middleton. You know, like the Bucks are going to be a tougher team this year than they were last year. I just think if I'm the Celtics, I am like Luke Cornett starting, playing 38 minutes. Let's do it if it means we give Al Horford a night off. Like,
Yeah.
even if you lose, even if, you know, you lose 2 in a row. Oh no, like you built up this huge, you know, you had this 9-game winning streak early in the season.
Yeah.
That builds you a lot of cachet to where when Rob comes back, you could make a run and be right up there in contention for the 1, the 2 seed, even if you slip a little bit now, even if you slip a little bit in the middle of the season. I think, you know, with Tatum, I'm talking about like, hey, like give the guy a night off here or there, make the guy take a night off here or there. With Al, I mean, if I'm the Celtics, I'm like, is there any reason not to like really limit him? Like to like make
No.
back-to-backs a rarity for him? Like every back-to-back. Just is there any
Yeah.
reason for him to play both of them? Is there, you know, if you've got, you know, 3 of 4, you could give him 2 nights off and have him play 1 of 4 and then come back on the whatever the next game is and be super fresh. Like they're you know, they've set themselves up from a record perspective and roster perspective where Grant Williams can fill in, Luke Cornett can fill in. When Rob Williams comes back, he can fill in. Keep Al Horford fresh because that dude is, I think, like, I mean, we know how critical he is to this team's success. And I think it's especially going to be apparent and stark when in the postseason.
Fatigue also impacts shot selection.
Yeah.
And it's very easy for fatigued players or players who say, you know what, I'm not going to give it 100%. Very easy for them to settle for 3-pointers. And the Celtics took 50 of them against Chicago. And I think that's part of why the Celtics and Malcolm Brogdon said, we need to get a little bit more variety in our shots, a little bit more balance in our shots. We'll talk about that in just a second. First, today's show is brought to you by BetOnline, your number one source for all of your sports betting information, stats, news, analysis, latest odds, trends for all your professional sports. Amateur leagues are out there too. Football, basketball, soccer. Soccer is kind of a big deal at the moment. It's all right there. Esports, it's all at betonline.net. And if you like podcasts, I assume that you like a podcast, you can find those at BetOnline as well. It's the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head on over to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline is where the game starts. Today's show is also brought to you by Craic Sauce, Craic. Look at it on YouTube. Nice variety here. This Mill City Red is your typical kind of more hot sauce. You like to get something hot on top of your food. But they got the Brian Burroughs curry, 40 shades of green chili, this golden pumpkin, different flavors, different heat levels. And they're great, not just for on top of food, but as ingredients in your cooking. The Craic Sauce story is a great one. It's made in Lowell, Massachusetts. It's a Celtics season ticket holder. It's all local ingredients. It's all local employees. So you're helping a small business, a Celtics fan, and he does it right. They use 10 to 20 local ingredients to bring great flavor to every one of your meals. You can get 10% off at the Craic Sauce website, Craic sauce.com, using the promo code Locked On. Locked On for 10% off at Craic Sauce. If you don't want to buy it, you want to try it first, go to the Black Rose before a game. If you're out there in Faneuil Hall area, go to the Black Rose for dinner. They carry it. You can buy it. You can try it there. This is a great gift. This little pack here is a great gift for anybody who loves the sauce. For anybody who loves loves hot sauce, Craic Sauce is great for a gift, a stocking stuffer. Get a gift for yourself. It's right there. 10% off at craicsauce.com with the promo code Locked On. So Malcolm Brogdon talked about the need for balance after the loss to the Chicago Bulls. And I think part of that, I don't think it was fatigue. They had a couple of days off. I think they were just being lazy. But the fatigue, the minutes, if they add up, I'm afraid that these types of games are something that can start to pile up if a team starts to get tired legs. And so while I don't think, Tom, that they came in and said they were tired, whatever. They came in, I think, and they just played slow and lazy. But I'm afraid of the potential for down the road, if these guys aren't careful, that they're going to say, okay, we're a little gassed. We're just going to rely on the shooting, and they're not afraid to put up 53 pointers because that's what they did against Chicago. That's a ton of 3-pointers. And I don't know. I don't want to make a huge deal of it. I don't want to make a huge deal of it, but I'd rather make a bigger deal of it now and hope that it gets addressed than wait and say, okay, I'd rather have us look back at this podcast in 2 weeks and go, okay, they fixed everything. So that was, rather than not talk about it and say, oh geez, the minutes are still an issue. Maybe we really need to talk about it now and get into that part. But the variety, that's the hard part, because you need to actually work to get to those spots and work to get to those cuts and work to get to the things that the Celtics need to do. I've been calling this like a paint by numbers game where the Celtics, you can see, especially like Marcus Smart, made a few passes that got deflected. I'm like, where are you throwing it? And guys weren't like shifting over to give him a passing lane. And like, well, if he's got a defender on him, why not do something else with the ball? No one was reading the game consistently. They were just passing to where the next pass was supposed to go on the play. And that is a level of just not being focused and all of that. All of this piles up, Tom. I just, if they're going to run their offense the right way, they got to be focused and present and reading the defense. And if they're not going to do that, be either by fatigue or laziness, this is what you're going to get.
100%. Now, and again, this is exactly what you were saying at the start. So like, same disclaimer, right? They did all of that stuff during the 9-game winning streak, right? Like that, and that when their offense was clicking, it looks brilliant. And like the threes look great. The looks are great. The driving to the paint looks great. All that stuff. But you're right. I mean, look, it's pretty well documented that when you get tired, the easiest shot that you can throw up is a 3-pointer. It's why so many people, as they get older, turn into shooters, because it's so much easier to just get that to just get that shot up. So yeah, I just think I think it's a valid concern. I think what we have seen and I think is worth, again, just pointing out, is that this Celtics team does seem to generally be able to avoid that, right? They generally seem to move the ball and to find the open guy and to drive the closeout and then kick out to the 3 rather than trying to walk into the 3 like they did so much of the time last year. Like, most of these threes that they generate are really good shots. But I mean, they have to keep being good shots. Like the shot selection has to stay really good if you're going to continue to have this breakdown of only threes, only layups, only Jayson Tatum shooting 18 free throws a game. Like that's, if that's going to be your offense, that's going to be a really good offense if you do it right. And it just comes down to doing it right.
Right. And that's, like, again, don't want to oversell. Like you said, they have the best record in the league. So when they come off a loss,
the number 2 offense now, though, the number 2 offense to your Sacramento freaking Kings.
That game, we might see a team score 170 points.
Oh, I'm so
in
excited.
Regulation.
I'm so
that
excited for
game. If those two teams are on, the Nets might literally catch fire. The friction of the ball going through might actually set one of the Nets ablaze.
Yeah.
That should be a fun one. But it's not that I think this game is a turning point or anything like that. This is what they're capable of. Yes. This is an example of what this team is capable of doing. We've seen the positive side of what they're capable of doing. Now we're seeing the negative side of what they're capable of doing. And the negative side of this, what this capability is, it's not just, oh, they had an off night. They ended up, scoring 107 points, but they gave up 120. Like, we didn't really talk about the defense and all of this. That the hope there is that that's going to change with Rob. And I do think that when Rob comes back, that the level of deterrent that he is at the rim, never mind just the shot blocker, just the presence of him, I'm willing to kind of wait and see how he affects the defense.
Yeah, and I'm also interested to see. I mean, I think these guys have kind of, like, from all these quotes that we're getting from them too, I think they have kind of drawn the Rob Williams return line in the sand of like, okay, like, and again, I think this is a dangerous game to play, but I do think that they're kind of saying that's when we expect the defense to turn around. So maybe it'll be kind of a self-selecting thing where they expect Rob to be back. They expect to be a great defense when he comes back. So then, maybe the defensive intent, whatever it is, defensive intensity, defensive attention to detail.
Yeah, we got Rob back there. We're going to step it up a little bit.
Okay, now we're going to step up. Exactly.
Yeah. But you're right. It is a dangerous thing. But also, like, if we were talking about any other team, if we were talking about, I don't know, pick like the Portland Trailblazers, and like they didn't have, I don't know, pick a guy, not Dame, a key player that was out, we'd be very quick to be like, oh, well, they haven't had him, so they should be fine.
Right.
We do that with every other team, and other teams, when they look at the Celtics, people who cover other teams, they sit there and be like, yeah, hey, they've done all this great. The defense is a little messy, but they haven't had Robert Williams, so let's see how that goes. And they very easily blow right past it. We are so in depth. We're so in the weeds. We're so in the, well, I've noticed that Marcus Smart isn't opening up his hips the same way that he used to. And you're like, oh, okay. Like
somebody covering the Blazers is like, cool, man.
Yeah. Like sometimes he just gets to the simplest part where, but also Robert Williams is an all defensive team guy and was going to be in consideration probably for Defensive Player of the Year. And, he helps. He helps a lot.
Yeah.
But that should help. That should help the offense. It should help the offense. On nights where they don't feel like they have it from three, they can at least lean on Rob to say, hey, at least I got a lob threat. Yeah. And Rob's a guy that can pass the ball. And he's a guy with energy. And that's just one more guy. And he doesn't have the option of settling for 3-pointers. So he can be the guy who says, hey, guys, I rolled to the rim 3 times and I was open and you just didn't throw me the lobs. So maybe look in my direction every once in a while. And they will be like, oh, yeah, you know what? You're right.
I like that you just gave Rob Williams, I'm going to speak to your manager energy.
Yeah, exactly. Excuse me.
Excuse me, sir. Please throw the ball as high as you can.
Yes. I thought it was established that when this happens, the ball hits the top left corner of the backboard and I go get it. And it's awesome. I'd like to be awesome. Thank you.
Karen Lord is back on the floor.
Yeah. Well, it was either that or try to do the Southern Rob affectation. Right. And I can't do that.
That's a hard one to do. Yeah.
That's a hard one to do. I will just say this. Hard to transcribe Robert Williams sometimes when he's like get that real mumble going, but always fun though. Always fun. And he always likes to swear in his, I think I've noticed the other thing, my last thing from Jayson Tatum's Globe thing, a lot of in the transcript of that bracket expletive deleted in the transcription. I'm not saying that Robert Williams is impacting everybody, but maybe Robert Williams, they weren't all swearing in their interviews until Robert Williams came in and just, dropped one every other sentence.
the other thing that I just love about Rob Williams, just because before we go, because you always have to say something you love about Rob Williams. He like I love like when people give like media advice to somebody who's going to be talking to the media, right? Like the big thing they say is like, if you want to get your message across, make sure you say it in a way that is interesting so that the reporter is like, "Ooh, I should use that as a quote." And like every sentence out of Rob Williams' mouth is interesting. Like he makes like an interesting point and says it in an interesting way. And it's like, I mean, this man is gold. Like every single thing he says could be when you have a headline that's like quotes and then the headline
Yeah,
right
yeah, yeah.
after it. I mean, every other sentence Rob says could be that
Yeah.
headline. It's so good.
Yeah.
He's a very interesting guy. I can't wait to have him back in our lives here.
Oh man. Yes, absolutely. All right. Well, I think we've done enough damage here today. So I want to say thank you, Tom_NBA, for not mailing it in today.
Thank you, John_Karalis.
Hope you've enjoyed the podcast. Here for you Monday through Friday. Bonus podcasts on the weekend. Maybe not if they lose, but we'll see. But yeah, bonus podcasts on the weekend on game nights. So make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to watch the show on YouTube, you can do that. And if you want to travel to the family for Thanksgiving and play it for them and share it and say, hey, you all should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast, I'd love it if you did that too. We're right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. We're your team every day.